Chapter 7. Of course, Leo left without picking up the tab. I paid Saul and headed back out into the snow with the remains of the bottle in my hand. I thought about what Leo had said, that they suspected that Jeremiah was under subjugation to Jeziel. If anyone knew the ins and outs of possession, it would be the minions of hell. They invented it. They probably had a manual somewhere. Not that they would let me put my hands on it. I kept trudging through the snow, each step crunching underfoot. I needed to do some research. Subjugation was not my area of expertise. This was a kind of possession I knew nothing about, probably because it was completely and utterly legal, in which case it did not constitute a violation of the agreements set forth in Year 1. I only deal in violations. It had been years since I had even thought about dusting off the books, but it looked like I had to do it. Jeziel was exploiting every loophole that he could find. But his methods were shitty. I'd get to him somehow. When I got home, I put the whiskey somewhere where I wouldn't see it, sat down at the computer, and went to work. Sure, I could have pulled out the actual books with all their pomp and circumstance, but they were heavy, and the rituals to open them were difficult and full of words I couldn't pronounce properly, given the amount of whiskey I had consumed and the fact that I had been in bird mode for a week. The digital copy would serve my purposes just fine. I kept looking back at Amanda's journals. The top one had a bright blue neon sticker on it that read, "Be happy," in all capital letters. Amanda wasn't happy when she had put that there. I knew that now. Focus. I needed to focus if I wanted to help her. Section 1, Article 2, Interactions with Humanity, Legal and Illegal. It is agreed upon by all parties, both heavenly and diabolical, that the following statements are truth. Number 1. Humans, both male and female of the species, are inherently sinful, having disobeyed the directive of the divine creator in the garden, and that each, while born without committing sin, had the burden of this original transgression passed on by blood. Each human will, forevermore, until such time as this world ends, will, by nature of their birth, be subject to such temptations as Satan et al. See fit to provide. 2. Each individual human, having been granted moral autonomy, free from control of heaven and hell, shall be able to choose to resist the temptation provided, or to take the temptation. The human shall also be able, at any time, to reject past choices and proceed to make new ones. 3. Direct influence is forbidden except under the following protocol. A. Within an altered state of consciousness, such as that caused by dreams, divination, meditation, or drug use. B. In the disguise of a human, and therefore with only human forms of influence, i.e., conversation, writing, or argument. C. By invitation of a human, including, but not limited to, prayer, ritual, covenant of blood, covenant of salt, generational curses, curses put in place at the request of another human, or prolonged intense emotion on the part of the human involved. 4. Direct control is forbidden except under the following protocol, and if an invitation is given under the preceding article. A. While possession of the body of a human is allowed, the soul shall remain untouched unless freely given and sealed by a covenant of salt or a covenant of blood. B. If full control is granted by the above-mentioned means, the soul of the human becomes the property of the controlling entity and relinquishes all rights to its autonomy. C. Upon being ejected from the body, the controlling entity shall feel the same pains of death that the human would experience. This was all basic information. Free Will 101. I glanced back at that blue heart on Amanda's journal and I sighed. What the hell was I going to do without her? I had known one day she would be taken from me. Her life would end, just like every human life has. But it had been generations since I had been with any being, human or inhuman, that I had a connection with, like I did with her. That image of her wraith, bound, gagged, surrounded by smoke, filled my vision again, and then unbidden the image of her body, lifeless, alone and cold and stiff, her car a snow-covered coffin. Death wasn't something I would ever experience, but every human did. Most souls experienced it multiple times, recycling through lives. The way Amanda left is not a way anyone should leave this world. All death is tragic, but this was an end before the thread she had chosen was cut, and she was trapped now, unable to move from this life into the next cycle. I had hoped in those few years that I had known Amanda that when the day came that she would pass from this life and on to the next, that I would be there to usher her on, to ease her passage in her old age, and then maybe, she would choose to be born in her next life here, next to my river. But instead she had taken her own life on the banks of the river where I had taken root so many thousand years ago. A seed washing up on the banks before the first peoples had ever set foot on the continent. The seed had drifted along the rivers of Pangaea for thousands of years, just like the other seeds from the tree of knowledge. According to the records in my possession, 30,000 years ago I woke, fully formed, my skin the same color as the red mud that I stood in. The sky was so much bluer then, and the prairies were covered with grass. Big lumbering mammoths walked them then. It was colder then, too. The glaciers were starting to recede. But even though the first step of mankind on the shores of my continent awakened me, I would still be alone for thousands of years, walking the banks of the river and flying above the prairies. When the first peoples came, they found me here. They took me for a holy man, a guardian between this world and the next, and they are the ones that named me. I was entranced by the flickering colors of their souls, the way they loved and hated, healed and killed. The same beings had both light and dark inside them. I lived among them at first, but when the winters became too hard and the herds they hunted moved, the people moved with them. I could only follow them as far as my river would go, because it was the river's waters that both carried me here and kept me here. Their great spirit was the creator who had planted me. Their totems promised to bring them back. They returned again and again, but I was never part of their tribe. I was always apart and separate. Things have changed since then. I witnessed the genocide of the first peoples by the white men. I watched them die from starvation and disease, war and murder. Their bloodlines were diluted through rape and marriage. Their totems and animal spirits still walk what is left of the prairies, and I see them in the city once in a while. The white men brought their own supernatural folk with them. Fairies, boogeymen, goblins. And the white men brought their slaves to the continent, and a new group of beings along with them. Other tribal gods and spirits, some even older than the totems. The city took root and grew on the banks of the river as I had done thousands of years before. The city was my home, but I had been alone here until Amanda. And now I was alone again. Sure, Gabe was a friend, but he wasn't human. He wasn't made from the earth like I am. He wasn't a kindred spirit. Amanda was, and she had been taken from me. I didn't have time for sentimentality or self-pity that didn't serve me or my purpose. Sadness was an emotion that led to stagnation, doubt, and inaction. It accomplished nothing. There was another emotion that would serve me better. Anger. Wrath. If I let myself, I could feel it inside, burning, boiling under the surface. Wrath, my old friend, was always there, buried deep inside. I have heard some say that God's wrath is inconsistent with his goodness. I know this to be false. God is inscrutable in his mercy, yes, but when you fuck with his creations, his masterpieces, his family, he will visit his wrath upon you with great vengeance. People make God into their own image. They try to fit the Creator's vastness, the Creator who framed in the universe inside something smaller than an atom, and then set it into motion, who inhabits the space between the atoms. They turn him into a petty old man who sits on a cloud shaking his holy finger at the puny humans down below, or they make him into a floating, mellow, holy hippie. And all of that is false. The Creator is in all and is all. He is the universe, but he exists beyond the universe. You know what else? He's not a he or a she. The Creator is both and neither. And for any bit of his creation, even for an archangel or me, for that matter, to say that they have the one correct understanding is at best stupid and is at worst lying. There was one who thought that he could understand God, who could be God, for that is what it is to claim to know the Infinite One. And his name was Lucifer, and now his name is Satan. As I said, pride was the original sin. So for anyone to claim that God cannot, that the Creator of the universe cannot do something, anything, greatly underestimates him. I was planted on the banks of the great river to judge, yes. But my purpose, my true purpose, is to be the agent of God's wrath against those who would take the divine spark from his children, those who would put out that fire and take away their choice. It is wrath, the wrath of a father, the wrath of a mother, the wrath of a sibling. And when it is lit, it is a burning fire that will not be quenched until justice is done. I felt that wrath now. For the loss of Amanda, for the fading and fraying of the tapestry, for the abuse that had been heaped upon his children in his name. I needed to go out. I needed to fly above the city to feel what the city felt. I climbed the stairs to the top of the bell tower and back out into the night. I felt the half-light of the darkened city fold itself around me, felt the snow flying around me. I felt myself split apart 1,000 pairs of black eyes, black wings and beaks and feathers. I swirled my many bodies around the bell until it rang out into the black of the night sky and the white of the falling snow. I am coming, Jaziel. You cannot hide. No matter what form you inhabit, I will find you. I am the instrument of vengeance. You cannot hide. Thus saith the Lord. I could see the first gray fingers of dawn on the horizon, the sun trying to break through the snow clouds. This year the city had seen more snow than it had in a decade. It was blanketed in snow, which made the lack of human color even more apparent. It should be emanating from every building, from the drivers in the snow plows as they crawled along the freeways, from the homeless sheltering where they could from the snow. It was there, but as the sisters had said, it was faded, muted. Not the jewel colors that should be reflecting from the white that covered the ground below me. I widened my perception, sending myself further from the center of the city. No one would be setting foot outside in this weather, even Jeremiah. If Jaziel indeed inhabited Jeremiah's soul, he wouldn't be able to permanently sever the connection he had without experiencing an incredible amount of pain. The possessing entity risked the pains of death in doing so, and would also lose control of their vessel. I looked for a thread, remembering what the sisters had said. It was strong, but it was colorless, and the threads that touched it faded and frayed. And then I saw it, the fading of the color and the strengthening of the light, more than the ambient glow from the streetlights on the snow, more than the muted sunlight. The colors flowed into it, melding and fading. It came from multiple sources, but they all fed into the same place, a bright spot in the northern part of the city. I gathered my flock and followed the light, my black feathers reflecting the brightness in iridescence. I see you, Jaziel.